I'm Brittany, this is Chuaning, and welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch and read gay things. We are continuing to read Volume 7 of Erha. So sorry that we did not have our regular Tuesday stream, as my lights went out on purpose, thanks to the city. They were just like, what if we just turned off everyone's power while we did stuff all of a sudden, and we won't let you know until the day it happens. So we did not have a stream on Thursday, but we have a stream right now on Thursday as usual, because we usually read on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Right at this time, we read for about 2 hours. We take a break around halfway through. We usually get through about 40 to 50 pages. And let's see, what else? There is a link down in the description box to the public Discord, where that's where all the book discussions are happening for Gaywatch, if you would like to check those out. There's also the book chats that we have at 2:15 before every main reading stream, where we discuss whatever we read in the last reading stream. And so we just came from one of those, which is why there were tangerines in the chat a little bit earlier for this stream. And there are trigger warnings down in the description box, although I think at this point you guys are fully aware. And we are on page 101 for chapter 219. Ooh, we're starting off well. Called Don't Leave Me. Don't Leave Me. We're in the middle of a awful nightmare. And now we have a chapter called Don't Leave Me. So, Mayhon said nothing, or perhaps there was nothing he could say. He stepped forward and pulled Chuaning into his arms. What's gotten into you? Oh, excuse me. We're gonna start this off correctly. He stepped forward and pulled Chuaning into his arms. What's gotten into you? Holding him like this, Mayhon could feel the warmth of Chuaning's body even through the cool cloth of his robes. Are you crying? He didn't know if this was dream or reality. He no longer knew anything with certainty, except that Chuaning's cold corpse was no longer lying in the Red Lotus pavilion. His Shizun was still alive, still worrying about the flexibility of his Holy Night Guardian's joints and whether they should be sealed with tongue oil or clear lacquer. This was enough. Mayhon drowned himself in it, refusing to wake. He and Chuaning finished the automaton together. When it was dark, he led Chuaning back to his room and tangled his limbs with his shizuns, just as he had in the past life. The Chuaning in this dream wasn't so easily tamed. He remained vicious in some respects, recalcitrant in others. Even as his climax crashed over him, he gritted his teeth in silence, sharp eyes misted with tears. Only the roughness of his breathing escaped his control. Welcome to the stream. The candles were lit. Their light shone upon the face of the well-ravished man beneath him. Mayhon drank in Chuaning's features with hungry, adoring eyes. He watched as Chuaning's black pupils filled with the reflection of the candlelight. It actually makes a ton of sense as to why this is being just briefly summarized, because it's not really happening. This isn't, the first time that we've been waiting for, right? So we don't really need to dwell on it. It also, the brevity lends itself to the sense that this isn't really happening. Mayhon drank in Chuaning's features with hungry, adoring eyes. He watched as Chuaning's black pupils filled with the reflection of the candlelight. The light flickered like petals fallen into a deep pond. Fuck you, meat bun. When Mayhon moved, those petals swirled and drifted in the waters, rippling outward. Eventually, tears ran from the ends of Chuaning's eyes. Mayhon kissed them all away. He knew too well what Chuaning was like. Without the use of aphrodisiacs, he rarely made any noise in bed. I feel like we should be taking note of that for future reference, because that does not seem to be the case in the present timeline. Hello? His self-control was regretfully unshakable, but what did that matter? Chuaning couldn't control the wetness of his eyes nor his helpless panting. So what if he didn't moan? It was enough for Mo-Run to fuck him to the point of tears, to see his eyes glaze over, to see his chest heave with desperation. Their night of pleasure stretched into the small hours of morning, when they finally fell asleep wrapped in each other's embrace. Mo-Run held Chuaning tightly in his arms. Their bodies lay pressed together, bare skin warm against bare skin, sweat-damp hair tacky on their cheeks. He planted ardent and tender kisses on Chuaning's ear and the pale column of his throat, then pulled him even tighter into his arms. This is all I need, Shizun. Just you by my side. He slept. It's a scene break. When he woke, he found the bed empty. Shizun? Jolting upright, he saw Chuaning standing at the half-opened window. Day had broken, and a misty rain shimmered down outside. Mo-Run let out a sigh of relief and reached out a hand. Shizun, come here. But Chuaning didn't move. His robes were neat and as white as driven snow. He looked quietly at the man on the bed. Gazing at him, Mo-Run felt a pulse of violent unease. Mo-Run, Chuaning said. It's time for me to go. Go? Mo-Run stared. The blankets were still warm. There were strands of hair on the pillow and a faint musky scent in the sheets, but Chuaning looked so distant he seemed to be standing on a far-off shore. Where are you going? Mo-Run asked anxiously. This is the Red Lotus Pavilion. You're home. We're already home, so where are you going? We're already home. Home. This is our home. I mean, like, we know, but we're home. Our home. Chuaning shook his head. He turned back to the pale dawn gathering outside the window. There's no time. It's almost morning. Waneng! He blinked. Nothing more. Then the room was empty, as if Chuaning had never been. Mo-Run threw on his clothes and scrambled out of bed, forgetting his shoes as he staggered outside. A nighttime breeze had strewn the courtyard with 1,000 snowy petals. The flourishing boughs of high tongue blossoms were nearly bare, fallen flowers littering the steps, table, and chairs. A finished Holy Night Guardian lay on the stone table, with the metal glove and file tossed carelessly down beside it, as if Chuaning had just left, as if he would be back any minute. Waneng? Waneng! Mo-Run sprinted through the Red Lotus Pavilion as if mad, searching for him, yet avoiding the lotus pond with unerring accuracy. He subconsciously feared the place. He dared not go. But he wandered deliriously toward it in the end, his feet bare against the freezing slabs of stone. He was still a fair distance away when he stopped. Numbness crept up his body, rising from his pale feet all the way to his face. Drained of color as he gazed at the man within the lotus pond, eyes wide in mute shock. The body in the pond looked precisely the same as it did every day of the last 2 years of his past life. It lay in the depths of the lotus flowers, held in stasis, robes pristine. Lying in the depths of those flowers, body in stasis, and robes pristine. What difference was there between dead and alive? What difference was there? Mo-Run took one step closer, then another. If he kept going until he reached the pool's edge, he would see each of Chuaning's lashes, those sharp brows faintly furrowed even in death, the sweeping line of those phoenix eyes that would never open again. He sank down in terror instead, his knees hitting the stone as he shook and cowered. Shivering on the ground, he remembered that pill old Lu had given him, that pill with the powers of resurrection. Mad with joy, he dug through his Chankun pouch with shaking, contorted fingers, tossing everything out. The pill, I need the resurrection pill. Where is it? He went through every item in the pouch, digging into every last wrinkle and probing every inch of every seam. But there was nothing. The resurrection pill was missing. It wasn't there. Or maybe running into old Lu and taking the pill had been a dream. No, these were all dreams, one after another. He finally shattered, mind reduced to fragmented scraps as he scrubbed at his face and eyes in despair. No, it's here, he murmured. I put it right here, the resurrection pill. It exists. He began to search madly once more, hysterically looking all around where he knelt before Chu Waning's corpse. A frightful glint shone in his eyes, but his voice grew only more hoarse and more hollow. In the end, he curled up and sobbed, I put it there, I did. He flung away the items scattered around him, countless ceramic bottles clinking as they smashed. Within these fragile ruins, he hobbled forward, ignoring how they pierced the skin on his knees. He crawled toward the man, lying in the lotus pond. Mo-Run walked out of the pond with Chu Waning in his arms, that icy corpse tightly clasped to his chest. Something he'd always wanted to do in his last life, yet somehow never did. He clutched at Chu Waning's body. That misty rain fell unceasingly. The sky in the east continued to brighten, but it had nothing to do with them. He clutched Chu Waning and cried, pressing his face to Chu Waning's and kissing his nose, lashes, and lips. Shizun. I'm begging you. Please pay attention to me. Please. In that moment, his silhouette seemed to recall that of the orphan, sobbing over the rotting body of his mother in the burial grounds. The boy who'd begged passers-by to bury him with his mom. He'd been only 5 years old. A 5-year-old child who swore he'd never again watch his loved one become a pile of rot while he looked on, helpless. Years had passed, in the blink of an eye. The 32-year-old Taeshun-jun clung to his Shizun's body and fell into fits of crazed laughter, broken by bouts of sobbing, as he caressed this corpse. A corpse that looked just as the man had in life. He'd done it. He could make a dead man look alive. There was almost a faint flush to the dead man's cheeks, his face so peaceful he might have merely fallen asleep. This time, he didn't beg anyone to bury him alongside Chu Waning. Taeshun-jun had already buried himself alive. The day after Chu Waning died, he'd drunk a jar of pear blossom white wine, and with every day that came after, he'd sat in this mausoleum to the living dead called the Red Lotus Pavilion, and drunk himself into a stupor. He had been buried 6 feet under since that day. Shizun, please pay attention to me. Mo-Run, please pay attention to me. He seemed to hear a familiar voice calling his name. As darkness fell around him once more, he clutched at the sound like a drowning man clutching a piece of driftwood. A hand reached out to him. He sobbed, grabbing it tightly. Don't go. I won't do anything bad or evil ever again. I'll never make you angry. Mo-Run clung to that person's hand, their fingers entwining. He smelled the faint scent of high-tongue flowers. I have a resurrection pill, but I don't know what happened. I can't find it anymore. I can't find it, but could you still stay with me, please? He blindly sought the warmth of that unknown person and held him tight. Please, I'd rather I was the one who died. Mo-Run, wake up! But he couldn't wake up. He was drowning in an agony deeper than the ocean. He couldn't wake up. Sobs caught in his throat as he latched tight to the person calling his name, his eyes overflowing with tears. "I'd rather I died instead, Shizen." "Damn, dog, what are you trying to do? Hey, you!" He felt someone rush over and grab him. There was a brief scuffle, and a hand poured a freezing liquid down his throat. It was cold, like dark ice left frozen for 1,000 years, filling him until his insides crackled with frost. His eyes snapped open. I appreciate the hand-holding in chat earlier. That was very helpful. Thank you. I don't think that was a scene break. I think I needed a break. I don't think the book wanted me to take a breather there, but I did. Oh. Zheng Shi's displeased face came into focus, a jade bottle in his hand. It had obviously held whatever he'd just been forced to drink. Mayhon heard the hoarseness of his voice the moment he spoke and fell silent. He looked around and saw that he'd returned to the ancestral temple. He'd sweated through all his many layers of robes, and those around him watched him strangely. Shuimeng in particular. His face was awful to look at, turning greenish and pale in turns. Mayhon was lying in Chu Waning's lap, his arms wrapped tightly around Chu Waning's waist. As he dreamt, he'd pulled Chu Waning's neat robes into complete disarray. One sleeve of his outer robe had nearly come completely off his shoulder. He paused. Had he said anything he shouldn't? Technically, yes, but I think everyone's about to chalk this up to like a nightmare, so I think you're safe, honestly. Because outside of, I wish I'd been the one who died instead, which wouldn't mean anything to anyone, I think you're safe. I think you're good. I think they're all about to be like, "Oh, nightmares, aren't they just crazy?" Chu Waning's expression was unsightly as well, but he still had his composure. "Why did you rush ahead so quickly?" "Shizen, You were caught in a nightmare." Zheng Shi put the bottle away and stood, casting his eyes downward. "Rest for a while. I gave you dream wake frost. You'll feel cold, but it'll fade in a few minutes." Dream wake frost. Thank you so much. Nothing I like more than a new thing with a really cool name. It's the fantasy horror in me. Dream wake frost. A little vial makes your insides feel utterly chilled and frosted, like literally wakes you up out of a love that. Thank you. Just a little bit of world building. Not that she's skimpy on the world building. I just love shit like this. Mayhon had not fully shaken off those layers of nightmares. His eyes were still glassy. A long beat of silence followed before he mumbled, "A nightmare. But I was careful. I didn't notice any trace of spells." Zheng Shi I'm skipping over whole words now. "Spells?" Zheng Shi asked, hackles raised. "What use are those stupid things?" Silence greeted that proclamation. "You think spells are the world's most vicious, lethal, and invisible weapon?" This medicine sect leader narrowed his eyes, sweeping his sleeves back as he spoke in tones of purest disdain. "Wrong on all counts. The world's most formidable weapon is medicine. And a swordsman would say the world's most powerful." He continued coolly. "The temple was filled with a type of incense known as 19 hells. This substance is colorless and odorless, but those who breathe it sink into an illusion of their greatest fear. At this, Jiangshi paused and looked Moran up and down. The greater the fear, the deeper the illusion. Oh! Eee! Ha ha! I mean, that illusion was pretty deep. I've rescued a few people caught in a 19 Hells nightmare before, but they woke up after 4 or 5 drops of dream wake frost. Do you know how much you drank? How much? Jiangshi seemed rather vexed. Most of the bottle. The amount required to wake you is enough to save 100 ordinary people. Now, riddle me this, Mo Zongsha. How do you have such a deep-rooted fear at your young age? What is it that you're so afraid of? It's the end of the chapter. Oh. So, this was actually, then what we were talking about, one of the things we were talking about in the book chat, earlier was like, this doesn't necessarily have to be the direct handiwork of the big bad, right? This could just be Moran's psyche kind of asserting itself. And in that case, it would be like the whole thing in the previous stream with Moran seeing things in very black and white and shoving himself into the black and white thinking of it should be Shimei. Shimei is what is good and pure, and you should be rescuing him, not Chuaning, who hurt you and is therefore the greatest filth to have ever existed. That seems to be the case. Holy shit. I mean, still painful. Still hate it. We're on page 109 for chapter 220, which is called Side by Side. Moran fell silent. Until this dream, not even he knew the scale of the terrors that lurked in his heart. His fears of Chuaning dying, of being questioned about his feelings for Shimei, his fear that this entire lifetime was no more than an ephemeral dream. He lowered his head. For some reason, because of the dream wake frost or something else, he was so cold he was shaking. Chuaning got to his feet. There were too many eyes upon them. He and Moran couldn't do anything to betray how close they were, especially considering how Moran had clung to him and cried his name in the dream. If he hadn't fought back, Moran might have shoved him to the ground right here in public. It hadn't gotten quite to that point. But Moran's reaction had been so intense, Chuaning wasn't sure what these bystanders had picked up on. He slowly straightened his spine. He'd been sitting so long his legs were a mass of pins and needles. Shuemeng instinctively reached out, but for some reason he didn't go to help Chuaning up. It was Shimei who extended an arm and softly said, "Shizun, rest for a while." Chuaning lowered his lashes. Without a word of excuse or explanation, he shrugged off his loosened outer robe. It fell around Moran's shoulders with a flutter of fabric. "Wear this. You can give it back after the cold has faded." Moran didn't dare look at him too long either. "Yes, Shizun." Everyone else had scattered to investigate the hall or search for triggers for hidden traps. Shui Jingyang asked Moran a few questions, and after being reassured of his nephew's health, patted his shoulder and walked toward the other sect leaders. Only Shuemeng stayed where he was. Once everyone was far enough away, he bent down, glancing around, and whispered in tones of suppressed wrath, "What the hell did you dream about?" Moran said nothing. "Answer me," Shuemeng ground out. "It was just a dream, that's all." "Whatever it was, it's all stuff that's in your heart." The light in Shuemeng's eyes was as scattered as his wits. "What were you thinking about? Are you... I dreamt I'd kill... I'm as Moran is. I dreamt I killed people." The bone-deep cold made Moran shiver. Even his lips were white. "I dreamt I killed Shizun." "You..." "That's all. Nothing else." Shuimeng's lips quivered as if he wanted to ask more, yet Mo-Run didn't sound like he was lying. But he said he dreamed about killing Shizin. Leaving aside the question of why Mo-Run feared this when he cared so deeply for his teacher, that expression on his face earlier when he'd been clutching at Chuaning, was that an emotion a disciple would display? Was there not something else there too? Something like... He dared not finish the thought. It felt as if he were steps away from the edge of an endless abyss. The endless gay abyss! Ah, you know, we've all seen it. This poor man. Henry, babe. Or was it an emotion a homosexual would display? Where did there we go. Ah, yes, the endless gay abyss. The effects of the medicine gradually faded. Mo-Run moved to stand. After hesitating a moment, Shuimeng helped him to his feet. Thank you, said Mo-Run. He looked over the other cultivators. Was anyone else affected by the incense? Just you. You ran too fast. Shuimeng, although still glum, was less volatile now. Jiangshi recognized the 18 demon-something incense the minute we entered. Not 18 demons. 19 hells. Whatever, the name doesn't matter. He concocted an antidote before we came in, so it was fine. Shuimeng paused, suddenly remembering something. But we were lucky. If the timing had been different, it would have been bad. What happened? You ran ahead too quickly, so you didn't see it. When we were on the way up the temple, a whole bunch of venomous snakes slithered out of Nangong Lu's basket. A ton of people were bitten, and they all had to stay behind and rest. The venom was really strong. Jiangshi told us to go on ahead while he stayed behind to help. If that had happened, all these people would have fallen prey to the incense as soon as they reached the temple. Shuimeng said. He only has one bottle of Dreamwake Frost. It wouldn't have been enough to treat everyone. Good? Mo-Run felt a prickle of unease. Then why didn't he stay? One of his disciples said he knew how to neutralize the toxin, so Jiangshi left him there and came up with us. Mo-Run furrowed his brow. His eyes roved over the Guiyue group one by one, but he didn't see the silhouette he sought. If Jiangshi's disciple hadn't known a cure for that type of venom, there were only two people who could have stayed behind. One was Jiangshi, and the other was Huabinan. Really? I was just about to ask that question. Where's Huabinan? Shuimeng blinked. You suspect Hanlin the Sage? It's just a question. There's nothing suspicious about his absence. Huabinan got bitten too, so he stayed behind to meditate. But he's already got a lot of toxins in him. They said he just needs to rebalance himself before joining us. I don't like her. The dislike is present. Mo-Run's expression darkened. If Hanlin the Sage was so injured he couldn't move, then only Jiangshi could have stayed behind to help. How lucky Jiangshi had a disciple who knew this particular venom. Otherwise, Jiangshi might have had to stay behind to treat the wounded. By the time he came up, what kind of scene would he have encountered? Would one bottle of Dreamwake Frost have been enough to fix things? Shuimeng. Be careful around Huabinan. The words hung in the air. Suddenly the ground shifted. A sound like a distant dragon's cry broke through the skies outside the hall. What? One of the more skittish cultivators exclaimed. What's happening? What was that? One of the brave ones replied, I'll go take a look. The brave man rushed outside and looked up and down. Don't worry, he said, when he turned back around. The mountain probably just makes that sound from time to time. It used to be the spirit of a demon dragon, after all. Hey, brave man? Maybe we're not so nonchalant with, the spirit of dead dragons, huh? Oh, the mountain just probably... No! Still fucking weird, brave man! I have exposed myself as one of the more skittish cultivators, but that's beside the point. As he lifted his foot to head back inside, he found it was stuck. A bone-white hand wrapped around his ankle. Stupefied, he stared down in silence. Uh-huh. Pays to be a little skittish sometimes, Score 1 for the cowards. Shui Jingyang's sharp eyes. Eyes. That was correct. Shui Jingyang's sharp eyes saw it at once. Look out, he shouted, but it was too late. A corpse leapt out of the darkness, garbed in the crane robes of Rufeng. A ribbon bound its eyes, and the blade of its sword had cut straight through the cultivator's chest. The man's eyes were wide and confused. He reached out, numbly touching the blade, then spat up a stomachful of blood and collapsed to the ground, unmoving. This is why the meek inherit the earth, because the brave ones just rush out the front door on a creepy-ass, haunted-ass mountain and is all like, what was that creepy-ass, haunted-ass sound? Now I'm creepy-ass, haunted-ass dead. The earth began quaking once more. Everyone looked out the hall doors to see thick bands of dragon sinew bursting out of the ground and whipping into the air, each bloody length wrapped around the body of a dead Rufeng disciple. From a distance, it looked like a swarm of wasps that had congregated in the sky above them, one ready to smash the hall's current inhabitants to a bloody pulp. The mountain just makes sounds like that sometimes. Relax, it's fine. I don't know why I'm dragging this brave man so much. He's dead. Master Ma covered his eyes with a cry. Oh, no, we're all gonna die. Listening to this infuriating merchant's wailing, Shui Jingyang could have spit blood. He shut Master Ma's mouth with a smack to the back of his head, then shouted at the assembled crowd, close the doors, seal the fucking doors, don't let them in. Just knowing the real life counterpart to Master Ma, hilarious. Then Master Ma just got smacked upside the head. That's beautiful. Oh. Shui Jingyang rushed at the first revenant, swaying with its bloodied sword in hand. With a flick of his fan, he pushed it away from the building, then kicked it down the long steps. Taking hold of one of the great doors of spiritual stone, he strained to close it with a grunt. But for some reason, those doors were easy to push open, but impossible to pull shut. Shui Jingyang pulled them so hard, veins protruded on his forearms, but all his might had as much effect as a drop of water in the ocean. The dragon sinews were puppeteering the corpses ever closer. What's going on? Shui Jingyang roared. Didn't Nangong Changying just seal them all? This asshole dragon is fighting its own master. Mo Run and Shui Meng had both run over to help Shui Jingyang. It's no use, Nangong Se shouted. The spiritual stones for the doors were hauled here by 4,000 porters at my great-grandfather's command. You can't close them by yourselves. Smoke seemed to puff from Huang Xiaoyui's ears. Your great-grandfather sounds like a real piece of work. He couldn't have gotten run through the chest by a dead guy? Why's the haunted mountain letting him live? Nangong said he would have never run to go check things out. Never mind. Nangong Se ignored him entirely. He turned to the group fending off Rufeng's sex revenants and cried, There's a mechanism inside that triggers the hall doors. Keep them off a while. I'll activate it. Shui Jingyang's fan moved so fast it looked like black smoke in his hand as he wielded it. With one flick, it flung more corpses away, leaving black blood splattered across the words, Shui is beautiful. But these bodies were those of mighty warriors. They stood up again as soon as they fell to the bottom of the stairs and continued their assault. "Hurry up!" Shui Jingyong turned to yell. "There's more of them! Fuck me, what the hell is happening?" Mo-Run summoned Jiang Gui. The doors were their last line of defense. He rushed out to engage directly with the revenants on the stairs, but right away he ran into difficulty. He couldn't use all his strength on the narrow steps, and he had to be careful not to step off into thin air and tumble from the sky. One lash of his whip knocked down a line of crawling corpses, only for the stinking dragon sinew to bring up more and more monsters around him. He was soon surrounded, lost in a sea of corpses with no way out, but Mo-Run wasn't intent on escape just yet. The revenants sought out the smell of humans, and he presented the closest target. Nearly all the corpses ran mindlessly toward him. Master Ma sighed as he cowered, trembling behind Jiang Shi. How impressive Mo Zhongshe is. How powerful indeed. Jiang Shi turned, annoyed. Are you of no use beyond selling things? Oh, wow. The things I'm good at take time to develop. Arrays, techniques, weapon modifications. I'm no good at hand-to-hand combat. Master Ma met Jiang Shi's freezing gaze and choked. Squirming, he tentatively said, I could maybe cheer you guys on? I mean, oh my. But what does Meat Bun think of Chak Ma? She's so cagey about it. Ooh. Jiang Shi stared. To be fair, Master Ma wasn't wrong. Each sect had their strengths and weaknesses. When facing bloody conflict, not everyone could charge into the fray and walk out alive. Some would merely be rushing to their own deaths. Even Jiang Shi himself hung back this time. Poison powders were useless on the dead. Shui Meng stood before the doors with Long Chung unsheathed, eyes fixed on the black-garbed silhouette rising and falling amidst the sea of crane-garbed shadows. One bloody vine flew into the air, carrying a strong Rufeng disciple, directly toward Mo-Run. Unable to stand by any longer, Shui Meng rushed over with sword in hand and hacked off the corpse's arm. He pressed his back against Mo-Run's, slashing another twisting vine apart. Blood sprayed into the air. If this is the art we're getting on the next page, I'm going to lose it. Meng Er, Shui Jingyong howled. Come back. It's fine. We've got this. It was clear whom he meant by we. Mo-Run turned his face slightly to Shui Meng. Hurry back. I can handle this alone. You be the second line of defense. Once I'm tired, you can... It is! It is! Stop! No! You can't do this to me. Why would you do this? Why would you do this? Why? No. Look at them! Fighting together! Look at them! They're so beautiful! No. Why you gotta play me like that? Shut up, Long Chong sang in Shui Meng's hand as he grouched. Who took first place at the Spiritual Mountain competition? You or me? Who's the young master of Xisheng Peak? You or me? Who's stronger? You or me? Mo-Run said nothing, chest blazing with warmth. He fell silent and turned all his attention to fighting back-to-back with Shui Meng, fending off the corpses, pressing in on all sides. Chest blazing with warmth. Affection! Oh my god. They heard the rumble of the stone doors slowly closing inward. Overjoyed, Shui Jingyong whooped. They're moving! The doors are closing! Hurry up, you two! Come back! Get over here! Mo Run and Shui Meng were fighting in perfect concert, the red glow of Jiangui dancing alongside Long Cheng's scarlet gleam. Metal clashed as they knocked a wave of corpses down through the clouds, bands of dragon sinew spurting blood as they were cut. They backed toward the temple as the doors groaned shut. You go in first, Shui Meng said. We'll go together, said Mo Run. Met with Shui Meng's blank stare, he cried, Hurry up! What are you waiting for? Hurry! Shui Jingyong bellowed from inside. Get inside! Mo Run grabbed Shui Meng by the lapels. Let go, Shui Meng raged. Don't act the hero here. Who's acting the hero? Time to go! Oh god, they're so brothers! Brothers! Mo Run yanked Shui Meng back and leapt up the steps, snapping Jiangui in a backhand lash and sending a last cluster of corpses flying. With Shui Meng in tow, he leapt toward the doors, still only half closed. They had plenty of time to spare. Mo Run threw Shui Meng toward Shui Jingyong and turned to face the horde outside. He took slow steps back toward the doors, eyes and willow vine alike sparking flame. Suddenly, the massive stone doors ground to a halt. Why did they stop? Shui Meng exclaimed. He turned and saw Nangong So walking out from behind one of the massive stone pillars, ashen-faced. The winch of the mechanism has been destroyed, he said, voice hollow. The chain snapped. I can't reattach it. He raised his hand. Gripped in his wounded fist was a segment of bronze chain, clanking in the air. That's the end of the chapter. We're out here sabotaging chains now. Not Nangong, obviously, but somebody. A bitch is really trying it, you know? There's some that we're on page 119 for chapter 221, which is called Hand in Hand. Let me check for a second, actually, to see if this chapter is particularly long. 18-29. Yeah, that would take us somewhat solidly past 4. So, I don't want to. I'm gonna have to be mean about it though. We're gonna take the break now, because it's better to take the break a little bit early than a little bit late, I find. So we're on page 119 for chapter 221. I will be right back. I'm going to reheat the tea and I guess start developing new conspiracy theories about who the fuck broke the chain. And when we come back, we will get into the second half. So I will be right back. And we're back. Wait, why am I... Hang on. Why am I am scooted over to where I should not be. This is better, much more central. Yes, thank you. We are continuing to read volume 7 of Erha. Get my face away from me to bring up the lovely chat. Actually, before we start, speaking of polls, even though I know there was a very entertaining one during the break, just another one for funsies. Should I have done this before coming back? Yes. I'm just too drunk with power, though. I can't resist. All right. We are on page 119 for chapter 221, which is called Hand in Hand. What's in hand? Probably not a chain, as important as that would be right now. Shui Meng nearly spat blood. Mo-Run didn't have the energy to spare. As soon as he heard Nangong's words, he turned back and resumed fighting the corpses, acting as the first line of defense. Chu Wanning had been helping Nangong work on the clearly sabotaged mechanism. When he saw Mo-Run outside, fighting alone, he flew to the doors and shouted, "Mo-Run, come back!" Oh, whoa, wait, no, I'm sorry. I thought that was Nangong. No, that was Chu Wanning, excuse me. Mo-Run, come back. Shizun. Chu Wanning slammed down a golden barrier, which flung the nearest corpses back down the steps as it activated. He set up barriers on the stairs, the entryway, and the gap between the doors, then dragged Mo-Run inside. Stop fighting. Shizun, we're still within the bounds of Mount Jiao. Your barriers won't last. There's no need for this. Face a maelstrom of fury. Chu Wanning gritted his teeth and shoved Mo-Run deeper into the hall. Bleeding all over and still trying to get yourself killed out there. Go sit down and meditate. Ximing Jing. Shizun, I'm here. Chu Wanning jabbed a finger at Mo-Run. See to his injuries. Shimei nodded. Yes, Shizun. See, not that Shimei is like terribly loquacious to begin with, but it's this very like, yes, Shimei. Yes, Shimei. Yes, Shizun. Sure, Shizun. And like nothing else. Although maybe that discounts the Zhenlong chess theory. Because as we saw with the kids, they can just kind of snap back and act perfectly normal. Mo-Run stilled Shimei's outstretched hand, then said to Chu Wanning, who'd already turned his back, Shizun, these are superficial wounds. Your barriers won't last more than half an hour here, and they'll drain your spiritual energy. Chu Wanning didn't turn to look at him from where he stood, facing the light of the barriers. Then I'll survive half an hour. Before Mo-Run could argue again, Shimei pulled him back. His cool fingers brushed Mo-Run's skin as he rolled up his sleeve and began casting healing spells over his wounds. When Mo-Run met his gaze, Shimei shook his head wordlessly before lowering his lashes and focusing on his work. Shui Meng, said Chu Wanning. Here, Shizun. Once I'm spent, you take over. Don't overdo it. As soon as you feel drained, sect leader, you take over next. Right, Shui Jingyong hastily answered. It's better to take turns. Chu Wanning poured his spiritual energy into the 3 barriers. There's something I'd like to ask of you, sect leader. Go on. Those useless shirkers cowering in the back, other than those of Tashui Palace and Guyueya, who aren't suited to hand-to-hand combat, bring everyone who can fight over here, he said through gritted teeth. What if they won't come? Then they can sit there and die when the doors are breached. Maybe that will motivate them. I need sassy bitch Chuaning all the time. Unfortunately, he only seems to get this savage when, like, they're all about to die. So maybe I don't want him all the time, but I want him all the time. Shui Jingyang diligently ran off. Nangong hadn't moved, still staring glumly at the broken chain in his hands, unsure what to do. Why had the sect founder's command broken so suddenly? An order from Nangong Changying couldn't be countermanded by anyone, so why would it? Shui Jingyang was rounding up those who could step out and help with their defense. I'll go, said Yue Wangxi. Nangong snapped back to his senses and stopped her. You're a girl, how can you... Yue Wangxi stared at the spineless herd of Jiangdong Hall disciples milling about whispering to each other. Even if Rufang's sex been reduced to 2, she said coldly, there are no cowards among our number. Why is every single line that Yue Wangxi says like the most iconic shit you ever heard? Everything she says should be like hammered into a plaque somewhere. I swear to God. What freaking, whoo. I'm writing down page numbers here. Holy shit. The women who'd mocked her for stepping up despite her gender were silent now. They slid their eyes away, avoiding Yue Wangxi's gaze. Shui Jingyang gathered a few more people. When he saw the next volunteer, he stared in shock. Han Shui, why have you... No, you're not used to this kind of fighting. Go back. Mayhon Shui was icy today. Don't worry, uncle. I know what I'm doing. I won't mess around. Shui Jingyang looked to the leader of Tashui Palace, but she seemed unbothered, so there was nothing he could say. Mayhon Shui stepped up to join their group. Jiang Shi frowned. Should we really keep everyone here to hold them off like this? It'd be better if we sent a few fighters to see what's in the back of the hall. Right now, it's best to stall for time and see if we can fix the mechanism before exploring. If it can't be fixed, we'll split into 2 groups. One to stay here, and one to go investigate, Shui Jingyang answered. Don't split the party! I recognize this isn't a game of Dungeons and Dragons, but don't split the party! It makes me nervous, okay? Where even am I? That's reasonable, but does anyone know how to repair it? A shaking hand rose into the air. Master Ma, who'd earlier shrunk in on himself like a turtle at Jiang Shi's scathing criticism, poked his head out once again. He said, timid, I can give it a try. We're screwed. We're all dead. This isn't actually an 11-volume series. The rest of it is just blank pages. It's just, it's just a little bit of a gimmick, That way, the plot twist of Jack Ma getting everybody fucking killed, you wouldn't see it coming if you think that there's just so much more to the series, right? But no, we all actually die now. Jiang Shi scoffed. Then why are you still standing here? Master Ma grabbed Nangong's arm and scampered off, while Shui Jingyang led his group of fighters back toward the doors. Jiang Shi turned to look at the hall that had been split into heaven and hell, sinking into thought. He stared at those Zhenlong chess pawns, who were on one side giggling and chatting with each other, and on the other enduring all manner of torture. At his last gaze, that was a typo. As his last oh, no, sorry. You think it's a typo, but it's just my incompetence. At last his gaze came to rest on Nangong Lu, who was sitting blankly next to his basket of tangerines. He found it all passing strange. Why hadn't Nangong Lu or any of the pawns in the hall gone berserk and tried to murder them like the corpses outside? If Shu Shuanglin took control of the pawns here to attack from within the hall, the cultivators would find themselves trapped and assailed from 2 sides. I'm just having deeply suspicious thoughts. Something new and different for these streams. Why hadn't he done so? Because he didn't want to? Or because he couldn't? Jiang Shi wasn't sure, but Mo Run knew. He could vividly sense that the pawns in the hall had their tempers, wishes, and even memories intact. They were completely different from the corpses controlled by the shared heart array outside. To use an inexact analogy, the corpses outside were like puppets on strings, while the ones in here were all individual actors. It was obvious why Xu Shuanglin wasn't controlling them. He'd already reached the limits of what he could accomplish with his spiritual energy. Chu Zongsha, a little help, please. A soft voice came from the stone stairs beyond the barrier. Chu Wanning looked up and saw... Huabinan at the head of a dozen cultivators besieged on the steps. This was the group who'd been bitten by snakes and stayed behind to rest, and had encountered a second corpse attack on the way over. Half their number had perished on the staircase, and those remaining had sustained serious injuries as they struggled free. Chu Wanning reached up without hesitation and cast another barrier, separating them from the revenants on the stairs behind them. Tianwen cracked through the air, driving off the corpses, pressing in. Here! Chu Wanning extended a hand to Huabinan. Morun tensed. Ignoring that Shimei was halfway through applying salve, he shot to his feet and called out, Shizun, be careful! But Huabinan did nothing untoward. He reached for Chu Wanning with one shaking hand, and Chu Wanning hauled him behind the stronger protective barrier. I need some help over here, Chu Wanning shouted back into the temple. Those lucky survivors were pulled over one by one and taken to the main hall. They groaned and panted, faces contorted in pain and smeared with blood. Jiang Shi led the Guyue disciples over and bent down before Huabinan. How did you get so badly injured? He asked, rare concern visible on his face. I'm fine. Sect leader, please look after the others first. Huabinan leaned back against the pillar, his veiled hat torn to shreds and his robes dyed scarlet. Jiang Shi reached out to take his pulse, but Huabinan held up a hand. I'm all right. They're all minor injuries, but your disciple, he coughed. He's badly injured. Go attend to him. Don't mind me. Don't take your pulse? We're just checking. It's the easy, cursory, takes 2 seconds kind of thing. The entire group was grievously wounded. Some had their legs completely broken in the fray, so Huabinan had indeed been quite lucky if he could still stand. Jiang Shi swore under his breath, cast a final glance at Huabinan, then turned to help with the other cultivators' injuries. Fingers trembling, Huabinan produced a bottle of coagulant powder from his Changkun pouch, and moved to sprinkle it over his wounds. A hand reached out without warning and took the bottle. Let me help, Morun said. No need for that. Morun looked at him, eyes dark and deep. It's just some medicinal powder. Anyone can do it. Huabinan snatched the bottle out of Morun's hand. I don't like other people touching me. Besides, you're not even a healer. You'd only cause trouble. Here. Allow me. Morun turned to see Shimei, nimbly setting his healer's pack beside Huabinan. Shimei? At the sight of the pack, Huabinan pursed his lips and fell silent, offering no further resistance. Shimei laid out his needles and bandages. Senior Sage, please forgive this junior for any mistakes. Huabinan said nothing. His wounds were so deep that his bleeding couldn't be stopped with spells. One had to staunch them with spiritual needles first. There was a cold, bright gleam as a dozen flashing needles reflected in Shimei's eyes. He'd placed them in a blink. Excuse me? Excuse me. Okay, so now I'm gonna need Hanlon the Sage and Shimei to talk to each other. I need them to speak. I need them to have a conversation. I need some kind of something to go on. Because what it looks like is that whoever's, if it's head hopping, if it's some kind of weird Genlong chess thing, who the fuck knows? But now it seems like we're hopping one to the other and he can only speak from one person at a time. This is concerning. I'm concerned. Am I? Okay. I'm short-circuiting a little bit. This is worrying. Didn't I say in a previous stream? Well, we've seen them in the same place, so it's clearly not an example of, you know, one person literally just pretending to be the other, right? Because we've seen them in the same place. Unless we're head hopping. Are we head hopping? Am I insane? Am I crazy? You know what? I'm mad with power. So, whoa, I just clicked on the wrong thing. There we go. Because I just can't get that out of this seems significant, okay? This seems No. That is not. I am too fucking nervous to poll correctly. So sorry. Fucking meat bun has me some type of way. There you go. Because I'm going to get stuck on that. I'm stuck on that now. And that's exactly the kind of bullshit that she's been playing on all this freaking time with Shimei. So honestly, it checks out. Okay? All right. Senior. Your hat and veil. A hint of shadow flitted through Hanlon the Sage's eyes, but he knew there were several necessary acupoints on the face. I'll do it myself, he said grimly. His bloodied veil fell, revealing the face Hanlon the Sage concealed from all outsiders. What? Nobody fucking move. If I hadn't just done a poll, I would legitimately be asking if we think Hanlon the Sage is going to be hot. Just because. Mad with power. Anyway. It was an arresting visage. The upper half was handsome. But all the skin below his nose was a burned and twisted mess. The texture raised and spiny. Huabinan looked up, resentment and ridicule flickering in his eyes. What now, Mo Zongsha? Will you stay to watch the show? My apologies. Huabinan sneered behind him. I told you to go. You're the one who insisted on staying. Now you say you're sorry, but who knows what you're really thinking. Probably that Hanlon the Sage looks like a freak. Mo Run shook his head. There was little else he could say. So he left. But see, I feel like that's also like a really easy get out of jail free card. I feel like that's a super... Okay. So this is an absolutely wild connection to draw. But girls, ladies, people with uteruses, you know how you can bring up that time of the month to get out of just about anything with a guy, right? Be like, oh, boss, I need a break. You can't take a break. You have to, oh, it's that time of the month, boss. And then you get out of it. And like, if you were in school, you'd be like, I need to go to the bathroom. You don't. You just want to like go chill or something. It's like, I need to go to the bathroom. You can't go to the bathroom. Oh, it's that time of the month. Okay, fine. Fucking go. You can get out of anything, right? I feel like he could be using, if he's evil, if he's good, I'm gonna owe so many apologies. But if he's evil, that's what I would do. Prey on other people's empathy and compassion, you know? Be like, hey, actually, hello, Phantom of the Opera this. Don't you feel embarrassed now? Get the fuck out. Maybe? Oh, Cam also citing Phantom of the Opera. Thank you so much. I am a Phantom of the Opera bitch. Master Ma was still fussing over the broken chain, while at the front of the temple, Chu Wanning was reaching the end of his reserves. He turned to Shui Meng. Shui Meng, take over. Shui Meng immediately stepped forward. Sword in hand, they changed places seamlessly. Not a single corpse squeezed its way in as Shui Meng raised his own barriers. As soon as Chu Wanning released the barrier, he stumbled backward. Mo Run's heart ached at the sight of his pale face, but he couldn't do anything while others watched. He couldn't even take Chu Wanning's hand. "Want Shizun," he said, biting his tongue. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." Chu Wanning coughed lightly. "I just overspent my spiritual energy." Chu Wanning's spiritual core was fragile. Overtaxing one's spiritual energy might not be worrisome for others, but for Chu Wanning, Mo Run closed his eyes. In the past life, when he and his teacher had fought on opposite sides of good and evil, this was how Chu Wanning's core had shattered in their final battle. This was how he'd become no more than an ordinary mortal, with a constitution more fragile than most. How could he be fine? Mo Run couldn't bear it. Eyes red, he silently slid off the robe Chu Wanning had lent him and draped it back over Chu Wanning's shoulders. Only then could he gently squeeze Chu Wanning's shoulders beneath the cloth, all the love he bore him hidden in that fleeting touch. We have the wildest shit going on right now. And then, on occasion, every few pages, we're just whacked over the head with, by the way, their love will stretch until the end of the universe type shit. Like, that's okay. Like, that's a legal thing to be doing, Meat Bun. He helped Chu Wanning away from the battle at the doors and into a secluded corner. Mo Run pulled Chu Wanning down to sit, and in the cover of the shadows silently took Chu Wanning's hand. His hand was freezing, just as it had been when Chu Wanning had fallen beneath Mo Run's sword, when Mo Run had stepped on his chest and reached out to take him by the chin. Mo Run lowered his lashes, fingertips trembling. Chu Wanning had thought to pull away. They were in public, after all, but he too felt that tremble. Instead of withdrawing his hand, he locked fingers with Mo Run's. "Let me see." Chu Wanning reached out and turned Mo Run's face from side to side, examining the wounds scattered over his cheeks and his nose. "Does it hurt?" Shaking his head, Mo Run stared into Chu Wanning's face, stared at the man who showed him so much concern even when his own lips had gone gray. It did hurt. Not the wounds, but his heart. He'd finally learned how to lie, as Chu Wanning did. "No," said Mo Run. "Then why are you shaking?" Mo Run didn't say anything. He couldn't say anything. Chu Wanning was left to assume he really was shaking from the pain. A faint jade glow lit up his fingertips. Mo Run's pupils shrank to pinpricks. He grabbed Chu Wanning's hand before it could touch his face. "Are you insane? Why are you still drawing on your spiritual energy?" A little won't hurt, said Chuaning. It's just a minor healing spell to soothe the pain. His fingertips brushed Mo-Run's cuts. A spell to soothe the pain, Chuaning had said. But Mo-Run felt his heart torn to pieces. A death by 1,000 cuts would feel like this. Of course, Mo-Run knew this was a tiny amount of spiritual energy, a drop in the ocean, or a cup of water scooped from the sea. Chuaning had given nearly everything to everyone else, and the fraction he'd left for Mo-Run was just this. In the past life, he'd hated Chuaning for giving the world so much, and himself so little. Back then, he hadn't known that, though what Chuaning gave him seemed insignificant, it was all he had. It was all that remained. All he could possibly give. Everything that I just said a couple of minutes ago, underlined in red with like 20 exclamation points. It's done. It's fixed. Master Ma's disciple appeared in the doorway, his cheeks red from exertion. Prepare to retreat immediately. We're closing the doors, he shouted. We're going to close the doors. By this time, Mayhon Shui had taken over the barriers holding back the revenant horde. Shui Meng had sustained a few injuries after taking Chuaning's place, but they were minor, requiring nothing more than a bandage. He sat off to the side, one end of the gauze in his teeth as he tried the knot, and watched Mayhon Shui face their foes. Now that was peculiar. He seemed to remember Mayhon Shui had a water and wood elemental core, but he was currently using fire elemental attacks. A what? And wood elemental core? What? Mayhon Shui is a water bitch? Did we know this? I don't think we knew this. Also, am I forgetting, which is likely, am I forgetting? Or did we know that someone could be both like wood and water, that people could have two types in the same core? Did we know that and I'm just forgetting? Or is this kind of a bit of new information? Not necessarily damning, just new information. We knew this? Yeah. Oops, that's my fault then. So, still, water bitch. Okay. I'm literally writing this down. Mayhon Shui, water bitch. Mayhon Shui stood at the top of the steps, holding a water-parting zither, strumming the strings with an impassive mien. But what came out were scarlet barrier flames that kept the approaching corpses away. The doors are closing. Mei Gongzhe. Mayhon Shui released the fretted zither, which hovered in mid-air, following his movements as he retreated toward the doors. Shui Meng realized something and turned. Can you open the doors a bit more? The zither is too wide. It won't. No need. Mayhon Shui crisply cut Shui Meng off and drew the zither swiftly into its case. Without the spiritual flames from its strings, that mass of revenants charged toward them. Mayhon Shui didn't specialize in hand-to-hand combat. Shui Meng paled and unsheathed Longcheng, prepared to rush outside and help. A gleam of silver appeared before he made it past the doors. A sword materialized in Mayhon Shui's hand, sharp and formidable. He wielded it with shocking speed, then leapt backward as he tossed the sword before him. In the instant before the doors closed, Mayhon Shui raised his hand and shouted, "Shuo Feng, return!" The sword transformed into a beam of light that shot through the crack, and Mayhon Shui caught it with a clean flourish, bringing it flush to his side. With a boom, the temple doors closed. The corpses and dragon sinews thudded as they crashed into the doors, but the sound seemed distant through the stone. The hall the Nangong clan had so painstakingly constructed was not so easily breached. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Who's sighing with relief right now? Not since I found out he's a water bitch, you know? Several inexperienced young disciples from the upper cultivation realm quietly crumpled to the ground. Some slightly more competent ones remained on their feet, but howled, "Fuck! What the hell happened here?" Mayhon Shui also let out a soft breath, though his expression of relief was scarcely different from his usual demeanor. If Shui Meng hadn't been watching him closely, he might not have noticed the slight parting of his lips, nor the subtle exhalation that followed. I'm sorry. Not to take a break from suspicion for a second, but hang on. This is so slick. Listen, if Shui Meng hadn't been watching him closely, he might not have noticed the slight parting of his lips, nor the subtle exhalation that followed. If Shui Meng hadn't been watching him closely, he wouldn't have noticed this. However, Shui Meng very much watching him closely, and therefore noticed a couple of gay details. Right? Fucking... Sensing a terrifying gaze fixed upon him, Mayhon Shui turned. "What? Why are you looking at me like that?" Shui Meng's throat felt dry. "That sword of yours." Mayhon Shui flicked a glance at the glowing silver longsword in his hand. "Shofeng." Shui Meng's expression wavered. "Since when did you use a sword?" He paused. "Wait, the question should be, since when did you have a holy weapon?" "This whole time." "Then why didn't you use it at the Spiritual Mountain competition?" cried Shui Meng. Mayhon Shui was silent a moment. "I didn't want to." "Is it because you look down on me?" Shui Meng was equally baffled and incensed. "If you used your holy weapon, you could have come in second?" Mayhon Shui shot him a fluid glance. Those icy eyes were almost mocking now. He gazed at Shui Meng, flushed with fury, for a long beat. "Third place is fine. First..." He pursed his lips, leaving his parting words to flutter into Shui Meng's ears as he walked past. "First place was too dumb." Okay. That was the end of the chapter, by the way. That's how we end the chapter. We're on page 131 for chapter 222, which is called Panicked Tumult, which I feel like describes this entire stream. I have not been calm for more than 2 seconds this entire time. Jesus Christ. Yes, another poll is coming at you. It's simply too much fun. This is too much fun. I'm having too much fun on this stream. I always have a blast on the streams, obviously, but I am having far too much fun on this one in particular. Crazy shit's happening. My brain is like running in 15 bajillion directions, which is normal because I have ADHD, but now they're more panicked and the directions are gayer than usual. Jesus. It was a long, stunned moment before Shui Meng snapped back to his senses. "You bastard, who are you calling dumb?" he shouted at Mayhon Shui's back. Shui Jingyong tongued him back. "Meng Er, that guy just called me dumb." "Enough, you misheard. Han Shui didn't say anything. He whispered it in my ear." "I know, we were there. It was pretty hot." Away from the hubbub, Jiang Shi was assessing the state of the wounded. Yeah, by the way, there's other shit happening, guys. Flirt later. He finished his inspection and ordered all the cultivators to stay put for a while and meditate or seek medical attention according to their needs. This outcome was unavoidable. They'd sent out many of their strongest fighters. Their arrowheads had been blunted before the bow was even drawn. To rashly continue would spell catastrophe if they were to meet with danger again. After laying down his instructions, Jiang Shi approached Nangong Se. Nangong, I have a question for you. Jiang, please go ahead. Jiang Shi glanced at Yuang Shi, standing beside him. Whatever you want to say, it's fine if she hears, Nangong Se said. It's best if she doesn't, replied Jiang Shi. His gaze went pointedly to Nangong Se's chest, where his spiritual core lay. After Yuang Shi retreated, Jiang Shi sat down beside Nangong Se. What are you going to do about your core? Keep lying. Nangong Se's eyes dulled. I haven't figured out how to tell her yet. You'd think she'd scorn you. You're overthinking. Miss Ye isn't the type to... No, said Nangong Se, cutting Jiang Shi off. I'm not afraid she'll scorn me. I just don't want her to worry. Jiang Shi fell silent, as if jabbed by the unfathomable arrogance in Nangong Se's bones. He chuckled. You certainly have faith in yourself. Jiang Zhengmen is mistaken. Jiang Zhengmen is mistaken. My faith isn't in myself. My faith is in her. One of my favorite little tropes. Thank you. You've been taken down quite a few notches lately, Jiang Shi said idly. Aren't you afraid I'll make trouble for you if you don't watch your words? You wouldn't. Jiang Shi paused. Do you have faith in me too? I've gotten a good grasp on Jiang Zhengmen's character on this journey, said Nangong Se. That's why I said what I did when I thought I was about to die. Jiang Shi had met Nangong Se's eyes as he spoke, but when Nangong Se mentioned that moment, he glanced away. It seems you survived. Do those words still hold true? They do, Nangong Se replied. Once we've defeated Xu Shuanglin, I'll tell everyone. Jiang Shi was quiet for a long interval before he spoke again. Nangong Se, it's a shame I won't see Rufang sect flourish under your leadership. You would have been a worthy opponent. Sect leader, you're mistaken again. Nangong Se's calm tone proclaimed his unshakable pride. I was already fortunate enough to learn the best of what Rufang sect has to offer. Protect this man. Please. And let him marry his wife. For fuck's sake. It was rare indeed for Jiang Shi to refrain from a pithy retort or scathing remark. It was rarer still for him to be impressed or agree with what someone else had said. This time he paused for a long while before responding. Enough of this, he said at length. I have a more important question for you. I know what the sect leader wants to ask. Nangong Se stroked Now Baizhen, curled up inside his quiver. There was a cut still trickling blood on the Fey Wolf's forehead. But I don't know how Mount Jiao could break free of the sect founder's will either. I thought it was impossible. You have no idea at all? Jiangshi asked. Think a little harder. Are there no secret histories pertaining to this mountain? Nangong shook his head. None. For generations, the Nangong clan has simply known that Mount Jiao obeys its descendants, but none more so than Nangong Changying. There's no one else who can override his orders. No one. The first master, the Jiao Dragon accepted was the sect founder. Nothing can change this. Jiangshi's expression flickered as he sank deeper into a rigid, brooding solemnity. Then how did Xu Shuanglin do it? I don't know either. Nangong paused. Jiangshi thought he had more to say and turned to look at him, only to find the young man staring fixedly into the distance. Jiangshi followed his line of sight and found Nangong Lu, peeling a tangerine. Nangong had been trying this whole time to avoid looking at his father, who'd been reduced to a pawn, but as he gazed upon him now, his face twisted with pain. In truth, Jiangshi was of the same generation as Xu Shuanglin and Shui Jingyong. Their cultivation methods were different, so he still appeared fresh-faced and handsome, but not so his mental state. His mind had long since lost its youthfulness. When he looked at Nangong he felt a rare compassion rise within him. Stop looking, he said. Don't look anymore. It seemed to take the last of Nangong remaining energy to tear his eyes from his father. When he lowered his gaze, his shoulders shook. He buried his face in his palms, but was unable to hide the sound of his sobs. He hoarsely murmured, as if trying to change the subject. I don't know how Xu Shuanglin did it either. The demon dragon was tamed by the sect founder himself. But his shoulders only shook more violently. Jiangshi had remained stiff all this time, his face very still, but now he reached out to pat Nangong shoulder. He seemed to want to comfort Nangong but he never comforted anyone in his life. He said clumsily, There now, everyone has their own fate. Despite how things ended, you were once father and son. Look at me, reaching middle age with no children at all. It could be worse. Stop. Why is that endearing? Nangong gave that statement all the due consideration it deserved, which was none at all. Even Jiangshi himself thought his words too dry, worse than not speaking. He rose with some embarrassment. I'll go look around the temple. Rest here for a while. We'll head off soon enough. Nangong didn't look up. One more thing. What's up ahead? The Dragon Soul Pool, Nangong replied in a muffled voice. What is it? A pool of dragon soul, I would imagine. It's the blood pool, where we offer sacrifices to the demon dragon. There was nothing in that sentence that I liked. That's not terrifying. The dragon's primordial spirit sleeps within it, and the people of Rufeng sect need to offer it sacrifices every year. Jiangshi frowned. Hopefully there's nothing else waiting for us there. And the Dragon Soul Pool? No! That's the fun part of the mountain. The group rested for the better part of an hour. The wounded and exhausted gradually recovered under the care of the healers. Jiangshi turned to Xu Shuanglin's dioramas, good and evil depicted in extremes, his frown deepening. What was Xu Shuanglin doing with these puppets that couldn't fight at all? Were they just decor? Given how the pawn Nangong Lu had said His Majesty with every other breath, it seemed Xu Shuanglin had crowned himself king and turned these Zhenlong chess puppets, split between dark and light, into his subjects. Jiangshi walked down the aisle, studying them, before finally making his way to Nangong Lu. The man was sitting on his basket, slowly peeling a tangerine. See, this is the second time that specifically peeling a tangerine has been mentioned. If he was a puppet, a Zhenlong chess thing, then it could just be automation to peel it for others. But if he's peeling it for himself, then I'm wondering if it's actually Nangong Lu. Jiangshi hesitated, then bent down and asked the same question they'd asked before. Can you take me to His Majesty? Nangong Lu gave the same answer. His Majesty is busy. I can't take you to him just because you asked. Useless. Jiangshi flicked his sleeves in displeasure. A wastrel to the end. A wastrel in life and as a pawn. Nangong Lu cowered before Jiangshi's vitriol. He clutched at his tangerine basket, then burst into frightened tears. Why are you so mean? I am useless. I've always been a wastrel. What's the point of being cruel to me? His loud bawling drew the attention of those around them. Chu Wanning, nearing the end of his meditation, frowned. There's something very strange about Nangong Lu. How so? Mo Run asked. I can't say, Chu Wanning replied. It does seem to be him, but there's something odd about the way he's acting. He's not like the Nangong Lu I knew. Mo Run looked over. Jiangshi was glaring at Nangong Lu, his face ashen, while Nangong Lu whimpered, rubbing his eyes in abject distress. As he observed Nangong Lu's movements, Mo Run felt there was indeed something unnerving about them. An indescribable wrongness, as if he were watching a child in the body of a middle-aged man. Goosebumps rose over his skin. Frozen, Mo Run murmured, A child? What? Mo Run whipped around. Shizun, don't you think he's acting very much like a child? Like, yeah? But like, what are we, what? I don't know what conclusion could be drawn from that, but... He peered back at Nangong Lu and saw he was using his sleeve to mop up the snot on his face. I'd say 6 years old at best. Chu Wanning looked at Nangong Lu again and found Mo Run was right. Although Nangong Lu still appeared to be in his 40s, his mannerisms were artless and childlike. Did Shu Shuanglin do something to him? Chu Wanning murmured. Somehow revert his mind and memories to those of his 6-year-old self. Shizun, wait here, Mo Run said. I want to try something. What are you planning? Mo Run didn't respond. As everyone watched, he walked over to Nangong Lu and picked up one of the tangerines. Don't cry, he said, handing it to him. Have a tangerine. I won't. I've already had one. The rest are for His Majesty. Mo Run put the little fruit back in the basket. Who's His Majesty? What use is this? Jiangshi huffed. I already asked him that question, didn't I? Nangong Lu gave the same rote answer. His Majesty is His Majesty. Who else could he be? But Mo Run didn't give up. He asked another question. Okay. His Majesty is His Majesty. You're so loyal and clever. I'm sure His Majesty would be happy if he knew. That's right. I've been asking questions about His Majesty the entire time. I haven't asked about you. What's your name, little one? Huang Xiaoyue had grown tired of this. He scoffed and made as if to speak, but Jiangshi held up a warning hand, shaking his hand. He'd also sensed something peculiar about Nangong Lu. Arms wrapped around his basket of tangerines, Nangong Lu looked at Mo Run for a while before timidly answering. I'm Nangong Lu. Mo Run grinned and patted Nangong Lu's head. Nice to meet you. Still smiling, he said, I'm Mo Run. I'm 22 years old. What about you? I'm 5. Silence fell over the hall. Though Nangong Lu hadn't spoken loudly, many around them had been watching quietly. These shaking words seemed to land like a thunderclap. Nearly everyone was flabbergasted. If not for the urgency of the situation, no few would have burst out laughing until tears of mirth streamed down their face. 5? 5? If 3 years ago someone had told them the leader of the greatest sect in the world would curl up beside a basket of tangerines and mumble, I'm 5, they would have sooner believed a sow could climb trees. But Nangong Lu had said just this, leaving everyone aghast, exchanging glances in complete confusion. What the fuck does this mean? Was he... like, Mo Run was essentially de-aged. Same brain, younger body. But this is a case of same body, younger brain. So what the... Jiangshi stepped forward and asked sternly, "What do you do here every day?" Nangong Lu ducked behind Mo Run, cowering and tugging on Mo Run's sleeve. "Dagaga, I don't want to talk to him. This uncle is so mean." Jiangshi blinked. Nangong Lu was older than he was. For Nangong Lu to call him uncle was off-puttingly weird. Mo Run also found the situation increasingly absurd. It would have been one thing if this were truly a 5-year-old child, but the hand tugging his sleeve now belonged to a man with crow's feet. Mouth twitching, Mo Run cleared his throat and consoled Nangong Lu. Okay, you don't have to talk to him. You can talk to me instead. What do you do here?" Jiangshi's eyes widened. He really had to give it to Mo Run. "Good going, young man. How do you keep a straight face at this?" "I pick tangerines every day. I pick them and wash them, then bring them to His Majesty and wait for him to come out and eat them," Nangong Lu babbled. "Tangerines are His Majesty's favorite. He can eat a whole basketful. The trees at the foot of the mountain used to only have flowers, but His Majesty said they were boring, so he swapped them for tangerine trees. I also think tangerines are better. They're so sweet." At this point, his eyes darkened. "But His Majesty hasn't been feeling good recently. Even when I pick him a whole basket, he can only eat half." Jiangshi latched onto the important part. "His Majesty isn't feeling well?" But even the 5-year-old Nangong Lu was good at holding grudges. Pursing his lips, he puffed out his cheeks and said, "Go away. I don't want to talk to you." Jiangshi managed to keep a straight face for the barest moment before he whipped around and covered his mouth with a handkerchief. "Jiang Zhenman, are you quite all right?" Huang Xiaoyue asked sweetly. "Don't talk to me." Jiangshi wrinkled his nose in disgust, refusing to look at the pouting Nangong Lu. "It's too fucking gross." "What do you mean His Majesty isn't feeling well?" Mo Run persisted. He coughs a lot, and blood keeps coming out. He's also very skinny, but he won't eat. A lot of his body has started rotting." As Nangong Lu spoke, tears began to roll down his cheeks like beads off a broken string. He was soon bawling again. "I'm so worried about him. What will I do if he goes away? No one will play with me or talk to me or feed me tangerines again." He feeds you tangerines?" Back at Rufeng sect, the grudges between these two brothers had seemed to run deeper than bloody seas of hate. It was miracle enough Xu Shuanglin wasn't still torturing his brother with Ling Chi fruit. Feeding him tangerines? Unimaginable. "His body has started rotting," Jiangshi murmured to himself. "Sounds like backlash from the Zhenlong chess formation," Shui Jingyong offered. This was an effect of which Mo Run was only too aware. If the caster of the Zhenlong chess formation lacked the required spiritual energy, or if they tried to possess too many chess pieces at once, their body would undergo necrosis. When he had first used this forbidden technique in the past life, his flesh, too, had begun to rot away. Specifically, his toe. Mo Run had feared Chu Wanning finding out, so he immediately stopped practicing Zhenlong chess and only continued after developing the shared heart array. In time to come, he became Emperor Taishanjun, possessed of enough spiritual energy to control thousands of pawns even without use of the array, but that necrotic toe on his left foot never recovered. Mo Run found it deeply strange. The revenants outside were being puppeteered by the shared heart array, but the bodies here in the temple, allowed to do as they liked, were solely supported by Xu Shuanglin's spiritual energy, without aid of the Soul Eater insects. He clearly couldn't handle so many chess pieces. Why would he do something so counterproductive? There was no use speculating. There was no use speculating. She just dropped a veritable fuck ton of things to speculate over, but there's no use speculating. "Let's go," Jiangshi said. The doors to the Dragon Soul pool opened via another mechanism, but this one was intact. The instant it was activated, the doors embedded with the septimal star array rumbled to life, retracting into the walls. Before their watchful eyes, Rufeng Sect's ancestral temple slowly revealed itself. The doors opened on a hexagonal chamber, its walls cold and wet. At the highest point of its ceiling was a crude dragon carved in relief, claws bared in fury. An oil lamp dangled from its mouth, filled with a fuel that burned cool blue. A pool of foam-flecked blood occupied the center of the chamber, bubbling and steaming in the air. The Dragon Soul Pool, said Nangong Se. The demon dragon's primordial spirit is sealed within it. One of the cultivators stepped forward to take a closer look, but Nangong Se held out a warning hand. Don't look too long. The malevolent energy around this pool is strong enough to dissolve the minds of those who gaze into it. Let's go. You couldn't have brought that up a little bit earlier? When it was like, so like, what's the vibe of the Dragon Soul Pool? Like, sure, like, it's fine. Like, I'm sure that it's whatever. We're through the hardest part, right? That's when you say, no, you don't understand. The Dragon Soul Pool will dissolve your mind if you look at it for too long. Maybe we don't relax. Where am I? Led by Nangong Se, they skirted around the pool and filed into the corridor behind it. The passage was dark and devoid of any markers, yet Mo-Run could tell they were heading uphill. They walked for half an hour before Nangong Se stopped. A narrow door lay in front of them, bedecked lavishly with jewels. The exit is a little past this door. Past that is the final section of the temple, the soul summoning platform. Shu Shuanglin is probably there. This is the entirety of Rufeng Sek's ancestral temple? Huang Xiaoyue piped up from the crowd. The front hall, the Dragon Soul Pool, and the soul summoning platform? Yes. There aren't any secret chambers? In his haste, he'd nearly said treasure chamber aloud. Fortunately, he'd managed to stop himself in time. I mean, Shu Shuanglin might be hiding in a secret chamber. You know, is it just me, or honestly, if we're gonna go there, Huang Xiaoyue and Jack Ma should be the ship, to be honest. They deserve each other. That's the cursed ship of this entire series. Nangong Se gave him a long, considering look until Huang Xiaoyue began to fidget under his gaze. Finally, Nangong Se said, "Let's go to the soul summoning platform first and see." The fresh blood of a Nangong descendant was once again required to open the door. Nangong Se smeared blood over the stone dragon's eye, and after a series of clicks, they heard a distant sigh. "Who's there?" Huang Xiaoyue exclaimed. He turned to Nangong Se. "You little brat, you better not be playing a trick on us, leading us all into a trap." "If Huang Daozhong has doubts," Nangong Se said, voice flat, "it's not too late to go back and wait in the hall." Huang Xiaoyue would of course do no such thing, but he did make sure to take a bit of insurance. He'd noticed all the important doors here required a Nangong's blood to open, and guessed that legendary treasure chamber must be the same. On his way past the door, Huang Xiaoyue placed his hand innocuously on the dragon's eye, and took some of Nangong Se's fresh blood. This is how he dies. A desolate voice filled the pitch-black tunnel. "Who comes?" Caught red-handed, Huang Xiaoyue nearly jumped a foot in the air. Everyone else looked around. "It is Nangong Se, 7th-generation descendant of Rufeng sect," Nangong Se said. "Wang Li welcomes master." The voice faded away. "Wang Li is the dragon's name," Nangong Se explained. "Zheng, if you please." Zheng Shi pierced into the tunnel. He could see white light glimmering in the distance, presumably the soul summoning platform. The earth shook again, and the hollow voice rang out once more. "Wang Li welcomes master." Is there something wrong with the dragon? Zheng Shi frowned. Why did it say the same thing twice? But the color had already drained from Nangong Se's face. He looked in the direction of the soul summoning platform. Shadows flickered in the distance. Before he could get a good look, he heard the hissing of countless tongues, followed by a dark mass, like a surging tide pouring toward them from where the light shone. Pupils shrinking, Nangong Se shouted, "Run!" That's the end of the chapter. It's the end of the chapter. And it's 5. It's 5. I thought we may have gotten a little bit farther today, but this was a stream of histrionics brought to you by yours truly, and as a result, this is where we have to stop. We are on page 143, chapter 223, which is called Carefree Wandering Reprise. Carefree Wandering, a reprise of Carefree Wandering. I mean, it's a reprise, so obviously it's been brought up before. Does Carefree Wandering... So, Henry, I don't think it's going to be carefree. You're on to something, Henry. So, that's it for this stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you had a good time. I don't know if it was terribly evident, but I had a real fucking blast. And I'll be back on Tuesday, unless the city decides to do more work, in order to read more at 3 on Tuesday, 2:15 p.m. if you want to chat with me about what we read today and this chaos for YouTube members and patrons. It'll be 2:15 on Tuesday, but 3 p.m. for you guys for more reading. Holy God. How much exactly can happen in 40 pages? Because I think it just did. So I hope you have a lovely weekend. I hope that you've had a good week, actually. I didn't get to check in with you on Tuesday, so I hope you've had a good week. I will see you next Tuesday. And in the meantime, please remember to take care of yourself.